Okay, getting back on the cylinder head here. I've gone ahead, I did it off camera, made a couple of valve spring caps, because the other ones were pretty rough. They were a little big and didn't fit quite right. So here's a picture of how I did the valve caps. Just turned them out on the lathe, made them fit the stem tight. And as I said before, I don't care to use cotter pins, but I think they'll be fine. I'll keep an eye on them. If they start to wear, I'll replace them. We sure don't want to drop a valve, and I don't think we will. So get that back going here. And I'll pan you out here. We'll take a look. I've got went ahead and put the bolts on. Got the engine base bolted down to the pan. The governor drive on it here. This is the governor in here, 5 balls. So I'm down to making some welch plugs. This part here has expandable plugs that need to be made and put in there. There's one over here. Goes in here as well. And show you how I did that here. So I need to make a plug for this, and I need to make a welch plug for it, which is an expandable plug. You put it in there and tap it, and it expands and holds tight in there. So what I did is I found something here that was just about the right size. This old valve keeper was just the right size to go in that hole. So I stuck it in there and found out it was the correct size. So back down here on the bench again, I just laid that out on a piece of about 1/16 inch aluminum stock, and just drew a circle around it, and got my size on there transferred. That left me with a circle there. I don't know if you can see that or not. I go over and cut that out on the bandsaw, then put it on the sander and sanded right down to the line. I ended up with a disc like this, and I've already cupped this one, and you have to cup it like that. So I found another old valve keeper top here that was about the right size, and I went and got a carriage bolt, about like that. Put a nut on it so I wouldn't batter the end of it. And I can set that little piece of aluminum in there and set that carriage bolt down on there, that concave head, and tap it, and until it becomes convex like so. And there's my welch plug. Let's put it in the engine. And you just put a little sealer of your choice in there around the perimeter where that sets at. In this case, I'm actually using JB Weld because I'm out of everything else. I could have used silicone, gasket maker, Permatex. I probably did have a little bit of Permatex over there, but I had this handy, so I'm just going to mix this up, smear it around in there. Just a little tiny bit's all we need, because it's going to squeeze most of it out anyway. Now I'll get a little tiny bit of it in there all the way around, and that'll just take up the voids. This isn't a perfect circle, but it's close enough. I'll stick that in there like so. It fits in there very nicely. And let me find something to tap it with here. Matter of fact, I'll just use my tapping tool here that I made. Put it in there. Do that, and it is in. Just like so. Take a little rag and wipe out the excess epoxy. There it is. That won't leak oil. Now I'm going to make a bigger one for the other side. Okay, here's the other side. Let's take a measurement here and see what we need. Inside this groove where that plug goes is, let me measure it here. Probably can't see me. 1.055. 1.055. That is the diameter. The circumference of that is 0.775. So let me set up the calipers here. Right there. 775. Now I'll come down here. I don't think you can see me there, can you? I'm going to come down here a little bit. Set the calipers to 0.775. This just doesn't have to be perfect, just close. Like so, or they just go inside the calipers. Now I need to transfer and scratch that onto this piece of metal right here. So to do that, I'll take a little piece of metal about the size of what I'm going to need here. I'm going to transfer a dot with a center punch right there. That way, that will follow, that scribe will follow that, and I'll mark that. Makes a nice little scratch there on the aluminum. Then I can go over to the bandsaw. Looks like that. I'll take that over to the bandsaw and make me a circle. So here's what I come up with. I just rough sawed round close to the circle, even touched it in a couple places. Now I'll go over to the sander and I'll sand down to the line, and that'll give me just a little bit oversized piece of disc here to use. Okay, I just take a foam sanding block. You know, this is the kind that you can compress. I like these. They conform real easy to surfaces. Knock off the sanding. And there we have our disc ready for forming. I will tell you that I had to make two. This first one was too small. But anyway, they're easy to make, quick. So now I got to figure out how to dome this one. Okay, I think I'm ready to start concaving this. I used a small carriage bolt for the other one, so for a bigger plug, I guess, what do you use? A bigger carriage bolt, I guess. So let's try it. I'm working on a piece of carpet here. It's beginning to work. And you just keep doing this till you get it shrunk down. Let me get you back up here where you can see the engine. Get it shrunk down to where it'll fit inside this hole. And as you concave it, the actual OD gets smaller and it'll actually fit inside that recess. So we'll keep going here. Okay, what I've ended up with is a concave or convex, however you want to look at it, little plug, and it just fits that hole. Matter of fact, if I would stick it in there real hard, it would stick in there and I'd never get it out without punching a hole in it and prying it out. So I'm going to put my sealer in there and tap it into place and we'll be there. It's in place. I just want to drive it home here. I got a little piece of Delaware in here. That's all it takes. There it is. Wipe the excess sealer. Again, I used JB Weld. So if I ever want to get that out, I'll have to poke a hole in it and pry it out. That's how you do welch plugs. Well, I've got you down close on the bench here. Here is the original mixer that came off of the engine that I had running that I'm redoing. This mixer ran okay, just okay. It didn't run good, and it's had some different screws put in it, and I put this piece in it right here because I realized early on in the running of this engine that it wasn't drawing enough fuel. So this kind of choked it a little bit, and it did run. I mean, it ran okay, but I want it to run better. So I took the donor carburetor and I've taken it all apart, and I realized in examining this mixer why I had to put this piece on the original. It's got a baffle in here. It's built in. I don't know if you can see it or not, but this square piece here is actually, that has an insert in there. It looks to be 1/16 of an inch thick, and that's actually a square piece of material that they've pressed in there, and it has a baffle in the end of it. I want to see if I can get you in there to see that. There it is. You can see it hanging down right there. Well, that baffle is about rusted away. It's about gone. And what it does is it directs airflow right down. This is the main jet right here. It screws in right here, and it sticks up just proud of the airflow chamber, the airflow plenum in there. So what that baffle does in there is it directs the air. Give you a cross section here. It's laying in here at an angle like this. Let's see, is that right? Let me look. No, it's laying at an angle like this across, and this screw right here actually can adjust that piece of metal in there, that little piece of like a spring steel, and tighten up that Venturi effect or loosen it with an adjustment right here. And on the old carburetor there was just merely a spring in there, or a screw in there to fill the hole. So I'm debating on whether or not to heat this part up and try to press this out and repair it, or just to, now that I see what they're doing in here, I'll just cut a new piece and bolt it in there and see if I can get it, you know, somewhat like their original design, see if I can get that to work. So I'm going to work on this a little bit. I may take it, try to press this piece out of there. Don't know yet. Well, I'm thinking about it. Let me show you something else here. I'm going to put the main jet back in. This whole area here is drilled. They drilled down through there and down through there, and this is drilled completely up in here to where the air goes through. And what this is, there was a couple of plugs in here, and this is a fuel, this is the fuel chamber. So whenever you choke it, it draws fuel up through this drilling right here. You can see that, maybe see that in the, that's open. So with this plugged and this plugged, it can't leak fuel. But when you put your finger over it and choke it, that's a direct shot of fuel up into the Venturi here. So that's what these drillings are for. And this, on the old one, is a speed controller. And you loosen this screw, and this spring is attached right here. And you loosen this screw here and change the spring tension on the governor, and that changes the speed on the engine. So that's your speed change right there. Of course, this is your main fuel mix. So that's just a little more explanation in case one of you guys are working on this particular setup. It's weird, indeed, but it looks like it's going to work fine. So I'm after that little thin piece of material in there, and I can see now that it's a separate piece. You probably can't see it there, but take a real close look. See if the camera will focus. Right there, there's actually a little thin piece, about the thickness of this spring steel I'm going to use right there. So, and it's sticking through there, and it's just about rusted off. I would leave it alone, but it's just about rusted off. I don't want it coming off and going into the engine, causing issues. So I'm going to try to dig it out of there. I'm actually going to try to cut it off in there with a screwdriver blade. And I'm going to look and make sure I'm not moving that thing out. If I'm moving that thing out and can get it out of there pretty easy, I will do so. Let me go over on the vise with a punch and see if that thing by chance might want to move. Okay, I've been tapping on it a little bit and I'm detecting just the least little bit amount of movement on that, and I figured it out what that is. And that thin piece, and it's thin just like this right here. This is what I'm going to use to replace it with. What that is, that's a compensating valve, like the old compensating valves on your International M's and your Fairbanks Morse carburetors. And of course, with the more airflow, there's a ramp in there that it comes up against when it closes, and with the airflow it actually opens this. It will actually move this open with airflow. And of course, the more airflow, the farther open it is, and the more air you get past the main jet in there. So that's actually a little compensating valve, and it's got to be in there. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up over on the welding table and put some heat on here and try to break this bond between these two pieces of metal, and see if I can bump that out of there without damaging anything, because I feel like this really needs to be in there in order for it to run properly like it was originally designed. I apologize for the extra noise. I got the furnace running here, so just going to heat this up real good all the way around. And I need there we go. Oh yes, you went to Compensating Valve. I think it's moving. I think it's moving in. Let me get another punch here. Yeah, it's moving. I'm using a flashlight to go in here. See the end of it. The punch set up. Show you. There's what we're looking at. There's the end of the, and here's the piece coming out. So I'm gonna let that cool. I'll clean that up and get over here and get you a better look at it here. Back you off there a little bit. There you go. Feel lucky I was able to get that out of there. Little heat helps. I'm going to drop those parts into the cleaner here, those carb parts. It's hot water here, down in the ultrasonic cleaner. let those clean for a bit. While those are cleaning, we'll have a look at some of the other parts. Here's the throttle shaft. Got it cleaned up. Here's the throttle butterfly. It goes in that slot. It was bent, so I'm going to straighten it up. It's got a little whoop-de-doo in it there. I'm going to straighten it up, and I don't think it's supposed to be bent, so I'm going to straighten it and restore it. And that's about it. There's the main needle. Some springs, some rusty screws in there. I've got to put those in the ultrasonic cleaner and knock the rust off of them too, but there it turns. The water is a little muddy, dirty in there, but trying out this new ultrasonic cleaner, and it's hot, so it just turned off, and runs with hot water, and seems to do a pretty good job so far. Okay, here we are. Got her all cleaned up here. A little bit of rust left down in this bore here, but I'll clean that out with a wire brush. But look at that casting. Almost literally looks brand new. That ultrasonic cleaner does a great job. Here's the insert. And I just went around and with the sander and squared up all the edges. It's got some pitting in there, but hey, I'm not going to worry about that. Going to cut a new piece for it here now. Maybe file this a little bit, clean up the edges. Cut a piece of spring steel, put it back together. Looking good. Pretty decent. A little bend on it now. There it is. So I guess what I'm looking at here, yeah, that moves. I mean, that opens up, sucks open. So this is a limiting screw that goes in here where this one is. That's a limiting screw, and it was a broken off mess here. Here it is right here. And let me go get another one of those and screw in there. Probably put a little, maybe put a little lock nut on it so you can permanently lock it in place, I guess. Very good. Okay, mission accomplished. I don't know if you can see in there or not, but it's in there very well. Looks good. Little compensating valve. Alright, got her back together here, and looks like a new one. Everything's all set, ready to go. Get it bolted back on there and get on with the rest of the restoration here. Looks pretty decent. So, I mentioned a while ago this spring here, this screw, and I misspoke. I thought this screw pushed down on that spring in there that I just made, that baffle, spring steel baffle. It does not. That baffle moves on its own in there without any restriction. So I misspoke on that. It's because when I got this one together, I realized that that screw hole is to hold this spring. That this is a piece of spring steel here as well that keeps tension on the needle, keeps the needle from turning. So that's the deal there. So anyway, it's back together, ready to go. If you guys ever get into one of these, that little spring in there, like I showed you, is probably critical. We'll see how it runs when we get it all back together. So here's another weird part. This goes on the shaft that holds the gear that drives the magneto, and this cut piece of copper tubing lays facing up in the oil fill, so that when you fill the engine with oil, this gets a little bit of oil drizzled onto it too, and it goes down and lubricates the gear that drives the magneto. So that's a little weird. I had this is see, this one was in the donor engine, and the one that was in this engine we're rebuilding had this tube broken off. So I'm switching this part over to the rebuilt engine as well.